Hilchot Kadush HaKodesh. It's a Talmudic writing. Now we're going to look at it. This is chapter 4 and section 5. There are other factors for which the courts makes the year full. The year full is in parentheses, and it would mean adding a month. So there are other factors for which the court adds a month, makes the year full. In the case of necessity, among them that the roads are not suitable, and it's impossible for the people to make the pilgrimage. Parentheses, in such an instance, end of parentheses, the year is made full, parentheses, to allow time for, end of parentheses, the rains to stop and the roads to be fixed. That the bridges have been destroyed and there are rivers interrupting, in parentheses, the roads, and preventing the people, in parentheses, from continuing on their journey. The year is made full, a month is added, so that the bridges can be fixed, lest the people endanger themselves and die. That the ovens of the paschal sacrifice were destroyed by the rains, and thus there is no place for, in parentheses, the people to roast their paschal offering. We therefore make the year full so that the ovens can be rebuilt and can dry, parentheses, in the sun. That the Jews from the diaspora who have left their homes have not arrived in Jerusalem. We make the year full so that they will have time to reach, in parentheses, Jerusalem. Now, 6 says, which is very interesting because we had this situation arise last month. We do not, however, make the year full because of snow, nor because of cold climate, nor because the Jews from the diaspora who have not yet left their homes. Okay? So it continues. Similarly, this year was not made full. This is in parentheses. Similarly, the year is not made full because of ritual impurity, when most of the people or most of the priests are impure. The year is not made full so that they will be able to purify themselves and offer the paschal sacrifice in a state of ritual impurity. Instead, they should offer, in parentheses, the sacrifice while ritually impure. Nevertheless, if the year has been made full because of ritual impurity, it may be left full. Okay. And then it goes on with a bunch of other little notes in the writing here. In this portion of what was done historically. So my question I want to bring forth and to explore today is, if we have had rains for now 4 days straight, and if our roads are muddy, would it be correct that we would hold the calendar if this was the correct first month of the year? Now again, let's revisit what we have experienced this year. This year, we had a snow that even fell in Jerusalem. I think it was like, my goodness, it was well before Passover that we kept a month ago. I want to say it was a full week ahead of Passover. And Divorce Date Tree and Hebrew and Israel both came out with statements that it was impossible for last month to have been the Passover. Both cited the weather. Both cited that winter had not ended yet because of the snow and the rain. Okay, now here we are 30 days later, And we've actually had more precipitation in these last 4 days in this month than we had last month before we have the first flush of barley that determined a wave sheaf, the early calendar, before we of that group had celebrated our Passover. So my question is this correct? Is this what we need to do? If this is what we need to do, then we also need to delay the Passover for next month. Because I can tell you that the roads between here and Jerusalem from the north all the way to Jerusalem are going to be very muddy. Now, I want to make it clear that I'm literally not doing this to make anybody look bad. I'm literally doing this because I want to show you that this is not scriptural, that it is absolutely a tradition of man, that we apply this rule, not written in the Bible, and make it a precursor or a qualifier to start the year. And the reason I'm doing that, showing you this, is so that you can be free from a tradition. I mean, if after knowing it is a tradition, you want to stick to it, go ahead. But we're going to look at the correct response to these, let's call them these inconvenient weather anomalies, okay? Because there is a correct response, and there is a reason that we're seeing these. Well, one of the things that the other group seems to be very concerned about are muddy roads, that the condition of the roads, having muddy roads, having rainy weather, having inclement weather that would make traveling difficult, is not what Elohim would put his people through. I agree. I actually do agree. But first of all, let's just establish what the roads look like as of today. Remember that their Passover will be tomorrow night. So that means that arriving in Jerusalem over today, which is Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, would have been a real scenario. So again, the reason I'm doing this video is for you, the person that's watching the video right now. It's for you, just in case you don't understand that waiting for dry roads is not biblically commanded. The closest thing we have to this we find in Song of Solomon chapter 2 and verse 11. It says, "For lo, the winter is past and the rain has left." And then it goes on and it talks about that the flowers are blooming. But when we look at these words in Hebrew, it says, "For lo, hiding is past." This is not the traditional word, horif. This is a different word altogether. It's a samik, it's a tav, and it's a nun sofit. And this is saying that hiding is past. In other words, the flowers are no longer under the earth. It's during the season of love and life. It is during this time that the Messiah laid his life down, when everything is blooming and all the migrational birds are coming through Israel. It is during this time that the flowers that have hidden in the earth for 6 to 7 months during the dry, dusty time of year, they've hidden and they've slept until the rains have brought them forth again. Song of Solomon says the flowers are no longer hiding. Now, let's look at some verses that talks about the remedy for when we have rain that is not correct. Deuteronomy 11:14 says, "Of the rain, that I will give you the rain on your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in thy corn, which is grains, thy wine, which is grapes, and thy oil, which is olives." Leviticus 26:4 says, "Then I will give you rain in due season, and the land will yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit." Okay, that's what the rain is supposed to do. And it's in a due season. So let's look at what happens when the rain is not in a due season. What we're looking at with these rains that are on our land is an example of what we're going to see in this next verse. If we are walking through mud, if we are soaked to the bone and freezing, because believe you me, if it's raining, it is cold in Israel. Go look at Luke, where Peter warmed himself by the fire when Yeshua was in the temple before the high priest, or I don't think it was the high priest, but he was in the temple, and Peter was warming himself by the fire that night. It was cold. So if we have an issue with traveling to Jerusalem for one of the three Shalosh HaRegalim, one of the three go-up feasts to Jerusalem, then there's a reason that we're getting rain in a time when it's not due. Let's go to 1 Samuel 12. We're going to start about verse 13. "Now therefore, behold the king whom you have chosen and whom you have desired, and behold, the Lord hath set a king over you. If you will fear the Lord and serve him and obey him and not rebel against the commands of the Lord, then both ye and also the king that reigneth over you continue following the Lord your God. But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the commandments of the Lord, then shall the hand of the Lord be against you, as it was against your fathers. Now therefore stand and see this great thing which the Lord shall do for your eyes. Is it not the wheat harvest?" Reads it Shavuot. So now we're in the 3rd month. "Is it not the wheat harvest today? I will call unto the Lord, and he will send thunder and rain, that you may perceive and see the wickedness. Your wickedness is great, which you have done in the sight of the Lord, in asking you a king." Rain out of a due season is for our perception of wickedness. We cannot look to the land of Israel and understand that this nation allows 2 abortions per young girl for the 3 years they serve in the military, free on the government's dime. We cannot look at Israel and understand that the gay prides and pride parades in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, we have to understand that they exist. We have to understand that a woman can go and say, I was raped, give me an abortion. And maybe she was raped, and maybe she wasn't raped. The list goes on. The people that inhabit the land do not, as a group of believing people, do not live as a group of believing people. They do not live as a group of people keeping the covenant. It would be no different than going to the United States and understanding all the unrighteousness and all the things that are filth to Elohim, and then saying, well, no more tornadoes, no more floods, no more anything that express your displeasure. Just give us a nice, pretty spring and forget the rest. This is exactly the method that is being applied to the land of Israel. The other groups want Elohim to act benevolently towards the land and towards the people in a time when there's gross darkness on the land because of the hearts of the people. That we have rain in the 2nd month during a time when the other people's calendar would be going up to Jerusalem. Maybe it's we need to scratch our head and say, is there anything inside of us that we need to change? Or maybe we simply need to recognize that Elohim is still speaking. And he's not only speaking to us who understand his voice, but he's speaking to the people here on this land who have forgotten his voice. Either way, going to the Talmud, which is extra biblical writings, and using it as a prerequisite for the year is adding to the Word of God. And when when he speaks, as he has this year, when they rejected the first flush of barley, which created a wonderful quantity for a wave sheaf, then when they rejected that and they're getting rain during their calendar for what they determined the Passover to be, they're completely silent. And I don't think that they're recognizing it as Elohim speaking to them. So from my understanding, rain in its due season and not outside of that due season is a blessing. Rain outside of that season is God speaking. I hope that helps you, and I hope that you'll be able to understand now that we don't need to use the rabbinical writings to determine the year at all. It just lends to confusion and teaches us not to hear the voice of God.